I see potential for huge silver and gold price moves with upcoming Fed action this month. This is what I'm doing right now. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching Yankee Stacking. I really do think that the likelihood of, huge silver and gold price moves starting this month is likely. Now, we know that the Fed has just dug in its heels on inflation. Jerome Powell has made it abundantly clear that it's public enemy number one, right? Inflation must be crushed. And, the rate hikes will continue until the job is done. And if they go through with what, markets and economists, pundits all over the place are 100% sure they're going to do, and that is raise the federal funds rate 75 basis points, we are going over 3% this week. I get a lot of emails and DMs asking, Yankee, is the bottom in on silver? Is this it for gold? Are we going lower? I don't know. We could hit 1,500 in gold. I could see that. But that constitutes a great long-term buying opportunity, in my opinion. I continue to buy physical gold and physical silver, like this buffalo that I just got from Tim Marshner, my local coin shop dealer, and this tube of silver rounds that I got from SD Bullion. And I keep doing that. Each time there's a pullback, I am dollar cost averaging my precious metals purchases. I'm also dollar cost averaging my gold and silver mining stocks as well. But here are some tough questions we really have to ask ourselves. I'm asking these questions of myself all the time. Number one, why in the face of inflation has our traditional inflation hedge, gold and silver, reacted this way? Gold's off 18% from its March high. Silver's down 27% since then. I think I know why. I'm going to share it with you later in this video. Number two, how many more rate hikes are there left before Jerome either starts reducing the size of the hikes or just pauses completely? And number three, what's next with gold and silver if and when the Fed does what I think it's going to do? So those are the three questions. I'm going to get the perspective of a gold and silver expert whom I've interviewed twice before. His name is Max Porterfield. He is the CEO of Callinex Mines, and they are sponsoring this video. He's a precious metal stacker himself. He has great insights into gold and silver, along with base metals like copper and zinc, so you're going to want to hear him. I'm also strongly considering a stock position in their company. I haven't bought them yet. I've been watching them carefully for a while now, and they've announced some amazing news. So this might be the buying opportunity I've been waiting for. Welcome, Max. Thanks for coming back to my channel.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Now, I know you're a precious metals stacker. We've talked about that the last time you were on, but I also know you're a fan of dragons. I want to show you this. Silver dragons. It's a double dragon.
Oh, that's beautiful. Where's that one from?
Well, this one has the late queen on it. It's the Nui Mint. Right there. Pretty cool, huh?
That's super cool. Yeah, I know I just recently bought a dragon coin myself. I bought about 3 more recently, so I'm quite excited about them.
Oh, excellent. All right. Since we last talked, inflation has roared. Everyone is stunned that the headlines... Huh?
I said I don't know why.
I know, right? Well, let me qualify that. Almost everyone has been stunned by the CPI. I mean, the headline was what, 8.3 last month? Mm-hmm. But when you really look at the details, Max, and how it affects regular people, year over year, food is up 11.4%. Groceries, the stuff we bring home to eat, it's up 13.5%. Housing, rent, way up. In fact, consumer prices as a whole are up 14% over the past 2 years. So I got a question for you, Max. Why is gold and silver going down? Why in the face of inflation has our traditional inflation hedge reacted this way?
I think it's really a shorter term phenomenon. And I think that you have a strengthening of the dollar. And as this dollar strength, it's going to hurt any commodities. Precious metals obviously are going to be impacted as well. But I think ultimately the trillions of dollars that are being printed in the North America and the U.S. is going to weaken the dollar ultimately. But anytime you have strengthening of the dollar, it's going to hurt the base metals, precious metal space. But at the end of the day, in a hyperinflationary scenario like we're in, you're going to want to hold real assets. I know we talked about that last time. I'm still very much a believer on that. In terms of increasing interest rates, they have to do that to slow down the inflationary environment that they created with that endless amount of money printing. And, when you go back and look at these economist headlines in 2020 saying that trillions of dollars is not going to create inflation, you have to question, are they delusional? Did they go to school? Did they go to the same school that, I went to? I don't understand that. But again, this is ultimately going to come to a head. And you can have a big move in a very short period of time, when this all comes to roost officially. I think the pain has just started in many ways. And certainly, a big source of that's going to be the housing market. I reside in Canada, and half of the mortgages that were put out in the past 2 years were adjustable rate. And, the interest rate hikes here, in Canada have, slowing things down dramatically. And really see the same thing happening in the United States and all these economies that have, done the same thing, which is print. Yep. I think that's why you want to be positioned and have an allocation, whatever you're comfortable with, in the precious and base metal space. Commodities overall should always be a part of a portfolio, and certainly you want to go overweight in certain times. And the writing's on the wall; it's been on the wall, and I'd rather be an early mover than late to the game.
Right. The inflation hedge mantra that we say all the time is eventually going to be true. And, what I think is going on, Max, is I think the markets believe a false narrative that the Fed is actually going to win this battle against inflation.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible. And that's what, I mean, I guess maybe I have the ability to see through all of it, but it's like the general public are puppets, and they'll literally dance to whatever the tune that's being sung in the moment, and they buy into this. And I don't know if it's a lack of knowledge in the general population, probably, and faith that the people that are decision makers are going to be making the right decisions. But that's certainly not the case. The overall general public is in some kind of la euphoric land. I think the crash of the crypto is a very sobering perspective for a lot of people, because I was talking to people that, didn't think they would ever work again. And they're very humbled now to that end, but that's just not reality. And how people can get so stretched from reality, I'm pretty lost, to be honest with you, because it seems very, very clear on what's going on in my views of the world, at least.
Second question for you. Do you think that we're going to actually see more rate hikes by the Fed past September? Or do you think a pause is coming?
No. There's no pause, in my opinion.
No pause?
No, I don't think they have an opportunity to do that. They're reactionary, right? Mm-hmm. So they were slow to react. We can see that they're slow to react. I mean, they should have been doing this a while back. Instead, they were lowering rates, trying to, while they shut everybody down. And the only thing that's going to happen is you're raising rates to the point where you're going to increase the cost of borrowing so much, where things are even more unaffordable from the housing context. I mean, it's going to hurt housing. Mm-hmm. But those are the things that needs to be pain to right what's going on, and they're reactionary. So they're going to overreact as well. So when you're late to react, then you're forced into a reaction, and then you overreact. And I do think they're going to continue to raise rates, because I think at some point they're not going to stop at the right time. They didn't start at the right time, and they didn't make the whole call the right way.
I got you.
Yep. A bunch of nonsense saying, "Oh, don't worry, everything's okay." And in the back, side of things, they're very, very concerned.
I think Jerome Powell is going to, at the very least, reduce how big the hikes are after this. I think he's going to pause. I'm not saying I'm not saying that we shouldn't have much, much higher rates, especially if we ever expect to take on inflation. It has to be more, but I don't think they're going to do it. The 6-month, the 12-year T-bills, they're yielding around, 4%, and they're probably going to be over 4% in the next few months, right? All our government debt was issued at like 25 basis points, 50 basis points. When it matures, they got to roll it over to what? 300 basis points, 400 basis points. The cost of paying the interest on the national debt is going to be surging by hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and the debt will go up too. See, and corporate debt's going to be in the same boat. That's going to hit business profits hard.
I don't think you mentioned the municipal debt either. And municipal debt's a huge item that no one ever talks about. Everyone always looks at the federal debt, but that's not the only debt. You know, on all these municipalities, look at California. I wouldn't want to be a resident of California personally.
Get out if you can.
Yeah, no, and here's a mass exodus of my own family. Many of them have moved to Nevada. They've moved to Texas. I'm from Texas. I still have a family in Texas, obviously, and spent some of the time of the year in Texas. But again, this debt issue has been a long time going, and politicians have continuously kicked the can down the road. What I found is that government policy is quick to be put in place without looking further down the road and what the impacts of that are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this whole electrification of the world that they're adding in this kind of utopian society they're trying to create right now is going to be a huge win. It's a huge win for the base metal space, particularly copper, because the supply isn't there. And they put in place government policy that has a huge impact on things that they don't really foresee. It's just not doable in many ways the way they think it's going to be done. And, that's how if you're going to go out and say everything's going to go off of, oil and gas and the hydrocarbon, and you're going to shift over to metals, you'd think that you're going to go look at what mine supply is going to look like, right? And I only talk about this because this is the business that I'm in, is the base metal space predominantly in the mining sector. But you watch government policy shifts and they make decisions without understanding how are you going to provide the substitute, right? Mm-hmm. And the only way you can provide a substitute in our business is you need higher prices, because higher prices is what's going to incentivize new production to come online. But what I guess I'm getting away from the original conversation is these individuals make decisions on a utopian idea to collect votes. And that only works for so long, because I can see it on the writing on the wall. I mean, you look at a lot of these things that are coming out of in Canada with the federal government there and these incentive packages. And I just watch comments, because comments are really anecdotal to what the general population is feeling when you watch people, talk. And Canada's a socialist nation. It's been that way for a long time. Mm-hmm. But when you start seeing comments that completely shifted from, we need help, we need this and that, to like, what is the government doing? How moronic is this? And they put us in this position. Why do they keep doing this? And I've always been a guy that's never wanted to be driven by fear. I'm not impacted by fear, but the whole world's driven by fear. And it goes from one fear event to another fear event, and you control people by fear, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's all the things predicated is on fear, and then relying on government. Fear, relying on government. But I can tell you that more and more people are exceptionally frustrated by what's going on, because they were told one thing that was going to help them, and say that they bought into that mandate. Yes, like we want help. We need this, give us that. But, that only works so long when people realize that it's not actually helping them, and it's making things much worse. This whole COVID lockdown was completely insane in Canada, at least from my personal opinion, how it all went down. Mm-hmm. But, the minute you had this, the trucking regime, I don't know if you've heard about the truckers.
Oh, the trucker convoy? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that all suddenly turns into, they had huge impacts. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't about the truckers, because the general population were supporting of the truckers. And then you can blame it. It's just all a cat and mouse game of telling, stories. But they had a huge impact on turning things around, in my own opinion. And someone had to stand up and start, speaking from the other side of things, because, in Canada, it's a peaceful population and everyone wants to be respectful. And they're not as, I'd say robust in personality in terms of voicing their opinions in the general public in the United States. It's a very U.S. thing. Mm-hmm. And so to see that happen in Canada was a big, big statement, because a lot of people, all you saw maybe was the truckers, but there was a lot of quiet support for them. And that's why you saw immediate changes, but they wouldn't give credit for the truckers in that movement that helped that, cause that change. Because that'd be giving credit to the other side of things and the other viewpoints, right? The issue is it's not isolated to one nation. This is a global problem, and this has gone on over the past really 40, 50 years in the United States since they, took the US dollar off the gold standard. And Dwight Eisenhower, I don't know if we talked about this before, if you go look at his farewell address, he just nailed it. He warned about the industrial military complex. He warned about weaponizing politicians using science, which we're dealing with. And he also warned heavily against government spending getting out of hand. And those three things have occurred not just in the United States, but all these, we'll call them, Western economies, where these politicians have just endlessly printed money with no disregard to kick the can further down the road. But that has to end at some point.
I agree.
And very, very soon.
All right, my third and final question here before we get into Callinex. What's next with gold and silver? In light of the Fed action, what's coming, you said you were bullish on precious metals on our last interview.
Yes.
Are you still bullish? Are you still optimistic?
I'm still bullish on the precious and base metals. Yes, absolutely.
I'm glad you said base metals too. That whole
I think copper's the new gold.
Copper is the new gold. All right.
Yeah.
Expand on that if you would.
Building blocks to the global economy. Gold is valuable because it's scarce, right? Mm-hmm. When you have scarcity of anything, that's when it's more valuable. You have demand, supply and demand. If you look at the copper's had a lack of investment in the last 10 to 20 years. And because there was no incentive for exploration for these base metals. And if you look at, the Escondido mine, for example, in Chile, they're actually potentially going on strike. It's the largest copper mine in the world. When that thing first went into production, I think it was running, well over 1%. Well, I think 1.4% copper, around that about. Today, that's being mined at 0.38%. The global average copper grade being mined is 0.5%. So you've got declining grades, lack of investment to explore for these, and then you have demand shift completely changed due to government policy. And that's what you're really seeing in the base metal space. That's why Goldman Sachs is calling a $7 copper by 2025. 2025 is 2 years away. And I think they're wrong on that. I think it's going to be much sooner because the supply is not there. And maybe you have some, demand destruction because of, going to a recessionary environment due to this interest rate conversation we have but doesn't take away this supply side problem. It takes 7 years on average from a discovery hole to production in copper. And that is assuming, for example, at Callinex, it took 6 years on our first discovery. And now we're really gelling as a team and just did another one. But these things don't come easy. So you're seeing it throughout the system that it's a supply side issue. And at the same time, they layer on mandates on demand. And where you're putting big demand drivers on these with the shift away from the hydrocarbon. And that's what I'm going back in is that even if you have demand destruction, they put artificial demand in there because of government policy. This is like when they, a number of years ago, when government policy was put in place that every vehicle needed a catalytic converter for environmental reasons.
Yep,
right?
I remember. Yep.
Way bigger than that. But every catalytic converter has a little bit of platinum. And platinum prices just skyrocketed. And so if you look at the consumption of copper, these base metals in each one of these electric vehicles, my classic Mustang, I have a 1966 Mustang. Nice. It's got roughly 40 pounds of copper in it. You look at the Teslas, these nice SUV Teslas, 140 pounds of copper. Right? And then that is just the vehicles. And then no one's talking about small combustion engines. Because the small combustion engines, like a lawnmower or a leaf blower, all those are actually more pollutive than a lot of these bigger engines. And so when you start going, well, all these need copper or all these need the battery metals, and then you go, well, where's the supply going to come from? The only thing to fix that is higher prices. And, copper prices have pulled back. And copper prices pulled back just like gold prices and silver prices. Mm-hmm. But this is all a shorter-term fundamental. Is a huge buying opportunity, in my opinion, longer term, because I can see down the runway that the supply is not there. And that's a real opportunity in many ways. When you see it for what it is and realize, the situation is what it is. And how do you make the best of your situation? Well, you're going to position yourself like you do with the stacking. And I have coins as well. Mm-hmm. But again, I feel the copper is the new gold,
Wow.
because it's going to be so necessary to have copper. It's a base metal because it's the building block of the global economy. You cannot go about your daily life without copper. Can't get in your car. Can't turn the lights on in your home. Nothing without copper.
Wow. So, Max, you're the CEO and founder of Callinex Mines. How have you positioned your company to take advantage of what's coming with gold and silver and copper and even zinc?
Yeah, well, we've always had a long-term view of favoring the base metals when I took over the company in 2014. And like I said, these discoveries take time, take capital, but you have to have an experienced team. And so again, we took the long game. Back in 2015, a lot of people weren't very very excited to hear when we were going, we're a copper exploration company. And with that being said, that you're talking $2 copper today. Copper's hit as high as 5. It's pulled back from that as well,
Mm-hmm.
to the high threes right now. But we hit our first discovery in the middle of the pandemic called Rainbow in 2020, and we spent the past 2 years drilling that out, and we're headed towards a maiden resource on that in early next year. And we've just hit another discovery called the Alchemist that we just announced last week, which is also another base and precious metals rich discovery. And it's very early. It's really like where Rainbow was early in 2021. The Alchemist is today, with just 3 holes into that discovery. And in Flin Flon's unique. Aside from having some of the highest grade copper deposits on a global basis have come out of Flin Flon, they're also known because of a significant precious metals component. VMS deposits, in my opinion, were the best type of deposit to look for, because it's not a one-trick pony. You get the best of all of the different commodities, both on the base and precious metal side in Flin Flon, and that's what we've been so dedicated to do, and that's how we're driving wealth for our shareholders and prosperity for the community of Flin Flon, which is that town that's been mining there for 100 years. And that's kind of our focus as an organization.
I've been watching Callinex, but now I've been watching it with greater interest. I saw that you attracted the attention of 2 really big, highly praised businesses, LTS Minerals, Mackenzie Investments. They've got some really good track records of picking winners, and I'm thinking this might be the time I jump on board. But let me ask you, why should I consider becoming a shareholder of Callinex right now?
You mentioned Mackenzie, and Mackenzie was in the most recent round of financing. Mackenzie, as an organization, is one of the top performing natural resource funds over the 10-year period. And Mackenzie and the portfolio team there, it started watching Callinex in 2015, and they're very astute investors. They're experts in the natural resource sector. And ultimately, when they saw what Rainbow had grown into since we hit that discovery hole, because there's risk, and in our business we de-risk by more drilling, and you define that resource. And so what got Mackenzie to make the move, and the same thing with Altius actually has a small underlying royalty on the area that hosts Rainbow and Alchemist. So obviously they're looking to support a potential future cash flow generating asset for themselves, having a small underlying royalty. But really, you'd want to make an investment in becoming a shareholder of this because of the potential resource growth on having a huge discoveries we're looking to make for our shareholders, and most importantly for the community of Flin Flon and North Americans that depend on natural domestic sources for these metals. And that's really a unique story. If you look on a global basis, we're in Canada, we're in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We have infrastructure, we have rule of law. There's a 100-year mining history there. And Flin Flon's known for having some of the highest grade copper deposits. And Rainbow has shown that, and we believe that Alchemist will show the same thing as we get into the Alchemist. And that's what we're so excited about, and that's how you make a lot of money in the resource business, is on discoveries. It's very like biotech. It's research and development driven, and our research and development is exploration through the drill bit. And as we drill out these deposits, we're creating real value, and that's what we're looking to do. And would love to have anybody that's looking to ride on that ride with us on the long term. Every day I wake up, shake my head, and going, "Is this real?" I'm so excited to have an opportunity to have a career where you go to work and it's not really work, it's a passion. and we're all set to do something big.
Well, you've been on my watch list now for quite a while. I'm going to bump you up to the top.
The last time we talked, I went out and I bought a dragon coin. So this
Okay.
time you follow up and you go and buy some Callinex.
All right, man. You got it. You bought okay. You buy more silver, I'll buy more Callinex. I got it.
fair enough.
Hey, this was a lot of fun. Thank you for being
really
here.
enjoyed it.
How can people get in touch with you if they have more questions?
You certainly can do so by visiting our website at callinex.ca. That's CALLINEX.ca. That's where all our news releases, the corporate presentation, and our contact information. And if you're inclined to become a shareholder like myself and so many others, you can do so on the OTCQX in the United States under the ticker CLLXF. On the OTCQX in the United States, and then on the Toronto Venture Exchange in Canada, we trade under the ticker CNX.
Yep, I got those right there on the screen, and I will put all that information in the description below. So thanks so much for joining me again, Max.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.